This video is about retrofitting a soft close function to your sliding door on your T6. So how did I attack this project? Well, I first went to Kufatec to buy the entire kit for doing this, realised it was pretty expensive, but they very kindly will sell you just the wiring loom with a set of instructions on how to fit it. These are the instructions from Kufatec. They've got copyright, so I'm not going to show them to you, but I will refer to them throughout the video. I've got the soft close module. This one I bought on eBay, came with the bracket. Unfortunately, this bracket is for the right-hand side of the car, so if you've got a right-hand drive, this is the one you want. And if, like me, you've got a left-hand drive, I reordered it, and that's the bracket for the left-hand side. So the other parts that we're going to need to buy are this. This is a sliding door lock with contact switch. Then we've got this, which is the soft close motor, and what this does is it replaces this striker plate that's on the vehicle already with this one that can rotate and perform the soft close function. As always, before pulling the car apart, we should do a quick scan with VCDS to confirm that there's no issues within the vehicle. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the electric locking sensor into the sliding door. To do that, I've got to completely strip down this door panel. Start by removing the fly net and the table. There are then 4 small torque screws along the bottom edge that can be removed. I'm going to try starting with this clip that's visible here.
So I'm going to take this guy in, I'm going to slide it in, and I'm aiming to go, I'll turn the head off, use it off a bit. Right now I can see it, and then I can put the tool in.
It's the same operation here, but more difficult because that. Remove the screw that's hidden behind the inside handle. That will allow the upper trim to move a little bit and allow you to release the lower trim. Gotcha. So I'll leave that guy in place. I'm now going to try and attack the clips that are here. Okay. Aha! It is free. So I'm going to push the door. Let's see. There. So that's the back of the panel, and yeah, you've got to be careful you don't break these welds when you're doing this. Someone else mentioned on the forum boards that was an issue. So the trick was to pry off, to start at the bottom corner, so that clip there, and I worked my way up these guys to that one. Did the other vertical edge, and then I pulled at the bottom of the trim to pop those 2, and then I had to sort of push the trim down to free these little notches here that were underneath the, and then I slipped my fingers down the slot between the opening window and this sort of weather seal, and then I was able to sort of like get enough pull force and locally to that, and then these guys pulled out, and then when this was the only one that was left. This last corner came off relatively easily as I lifted the panel off the car. So on inspection inside the door, I've actually got the door lock, which has the sensor inside it, already fitted to my vehicle. So taking that door trim apart was actually unnecessary. So the smart money would have been to remove this lock piece from the sliding door and check to see if the black and green wire was plugged into pin number 4 on that connector. Right, had the wiring loom not already been installed in the car, Kufatec had included this wiring loom with the necessary plug on it, and this would have gone into plug number 4, and this would have been coupled onto the black wire into plug number 3. So that I don't make any more mistakes and take any more unnecessary parts off the car, I decided to go back to the instructions and have a more detailed look in comparison to these flowcharts which I downloaded from Erwin. Lined up, I've got the flowchart for a vehicle with a soft close door system, and this is a flowchart for a vehicle like mine, which has got a standard door and an alarm system. It seems from the flowcharts, if you have a factory fitted alarm, you're going to have the switch contact in the lock on the sliding door. The sliding door contact switch is module F11 on that chart. And here is the instructions from Kufatec, and I've compared these 3 documents and tried to understand it. Now, it's not as complicated as it looks. Basically, we're only talking about 4 wires, 2 of which are fairly straightforward. So this one is the earth, so we just need to find a convenient place to screw that in somewhere behind the side trim. This is the power supply, and I'll talk about that in a second. And these 2 are the signal lines. This one is coming from the door telling the control module if it has to do any work, and then this one is going back to the main gateway to keep the control module in connection with the main gateway of the car. Kufatec recommend putting this directly into the gateway system underneath the dashboard, and that's an awful lot of work to get that cable all the way there. And by looking at the flow diagram, I can see here that that's where that cable should connect in, and that's the T10BK, so that's the grey connector underneath the front right seat. And that connector then goes back to pin 26 on the main gateway control. Looking at my car, you can see that the cable does exactly the same. It leaves position 3 where the signal comes out of the door, goes up here, then teleports over to here, and then comes back to the T10BK and then back to the 26. So what that means is we can redirect this cable to go to the soft control module. How am I going to do that? Well, what I'm going to do is I will unplug this connector here, and I will then plug the correct connector from the Kufatec loom in there, and I will unplug this connection here, and then I will connect this connector in on position 3 there, and then this line will then become obsolete, but the signal will still be going through to the main control module. It will just be going through the soft close module. And it means I will not need to remove all the dashboard trims to fit the cable. Kufatec recommend taking the power supply right back to the fuse box next to the gear stick. The power supply for the soft close should also connect into the T10BK. If I follow the cable further, it goes to reference 1, Reference 1 is over here and here, and so this comes down and then it joins these other power cables that then come back to the fuse location SC44. This diagram in the flowchart showed all the connections going back to the SC44. I have the J605 fitted to my car, so from that diagram I can see that I'll be able to pick up the power under the seats. So well worth checking the flow diagrams against the instructions, because if you're lucky and your vehicle's got a few options, you might be able to save yourself some time. So the next step is going to be to remove the trim from the side panel here, and yeah, all this has got to come out. Now I'm going to start by removing the B-pillar trim. Now this cap is the first piece that has to come off, and there's a little hidden hole there that you push something like an Allen key into. I try to do this without covering the camera. Okay, so I'm in the hole and then you just push it through and that comes off. And then it's a simple case of unscrewing the handle first and then the hidden fixation. Oh, that's going to drop. There you go. Caught that. Okay. 5mm socket, so quite small. Right, now to pop off the trim. So you start just here. There's like a plastic reinforcement behind the panel here. Put a bit of tape on to protect it, because even with the plastic tools, it's, yeah, this is just incredibly easily to damage this. That's the case. Find that the case with almost all the trims. So you've got to get under there, and then there you go. So that's pops the first trim. So then it's okay. So see what I mean? I'm kind of hinging it this way, and now it should just be a case of sliding it in that direction, and then it comes off without breaking it. But anyway, you can see on the back, I was aiming to get onto the plastic here, so not to push onto this bit, to lever this first clip off.
Pressure. Okay. Okay. So just pull that out, which is
To free the D-pillar trim, I actually wasn't able to remove that plug. I took off the little bezel that was stopping it from going through the hole.
again, just use the
So next I need to remove this guy, so that comes down and reveals 2 screws. As we go, I like to bag up all of the screws and the components that I take off so I don't lose anything. I'll start down the back edge here. So I'm going to release that one. That little guy shouldn't fall off and will need to be glued back onto the panel with some super glue. So that's the back of the panel off. So this side is the front and that's the rear. And this clip was extremely difficult to get off. Yeah, this was just located with a locator really, and it was held fixed with the screws behind that door. That one is there. That one I managed to release at the rear, and then there was that one, and that one, and I think it was that one that I was really fighting with at the end there. Then obviously there was the fixation, screw fixation there and there, and just, I guess this is different on different versions, but that piece on top came with it on the California with the roller blinds in the side windows. So this is an M8, I think they're 12-pin sockets.
So, just a big bar on this so that my hand doesn't get in the way of the camera.
In the end, I had to just pull this off and it's stuck into place with this seal, and then I think this seal, we then pull that off as well.
We'll now fit the new striker plate.
So I put the gasket in place.
And
Things are now sitting free. So the next step is to offer up the motor from the other side. So I'm now going to try and fit the soft close motor. Make sure that the concentric pin that rotates in the lock is positioned like this. If it's taking a lot of effort to tighten these, then the locator pin on the motor and the bracket are not aligned properly. Don't know what the torque is, I'm just going to give it 15 as a... Now I'm going to fit the soft close control module. So I've got the fitting location from the flow diagram. These are all at the back of the flow diagram, and the bracket should go behind the heater, which means I would need to take the heater out. Obviously, I'm not that keen to do that. After a lot of time thinking about it, the only sensible place that I could find to fit the soft close module was by folding back the heater, removing that screw there from the secondary heater and reinstalling it with the soft close module, and then that folds back comfortably and you can still access the plug. This is also how Kufatec recommend fitting it. So, just gonna unwind the wiring loom now. Plug in that first connector.
And then I'll clamp the cable onto the factory position that's running behind this speaker. Might take a couple of minutes to take this off. There we go. Over those. Yeah, easy. Up from the bottom. And there.
All those wires need to be firmly secured to the car so that there's no rattling behind the back of the panel. Also, any wire that's able to move freely and is wobbling all the time will eventually break. Attach the earthing wire to the earthing point behind the heater pipe.
So now we need to take the cable and lay it along the back of the step somehow, and then take this feed up to the switch plate there. Hopefully my arm isn't covering that too much. And then this lot, I'm going to try and make, that should all go right the way up to the front left hand corner of the car, but we're going to make a shortcut and we're going to go to this grey connector here on the cable loom. I'm going to just...
So on that grey connector, we've got that black wire with a green stripe on it. That's going to be our shortcut up to the vehicle ECU. The free slot on position 1 is where the power supply should be going into the cable loom.
So I had a quick look on the grey loom plug, so that's the one that looks like a female, and unfortunately that doesn't have the power cable coming into it. So what that means is that I'm going to have to remove, well, I'm first going to check to see I can pick up the fused power on the left side, and then I'll remove both of the seat bases so that I can lift the carpet and run the cable between the two seats. Just a quick note, when taking the seat out, I like to put a bit of tape down here just to protect the base. The paint on that seems to be incredibly poor quality and scratches really easily, and then you see it, which is annoying. And I also take the headrest off because it just makes it a bit easier to lift the seat. So I've already loosened the 2 bolts at the front, taken the 2 bolts out at the rear, and I've tipped the seat over like that, disconnected the cables that are underneath it, and now I'm just going to carefully lift it back. It's quite heavy. So I double checked the flow diagrams. This is the rear latching module, the 606, and then this comes to the plug T17J underneath the driver's seat, and the power is coming in at 15, and the TZJ is the white plug here. And I've checked and I have the correct cable, and it's also worth noting that while I was doing that search, that if I just have the 605, I'm going to have a 15 amp fuse, and I need to swap the fuse to 20 when I've got the left or right side control module also included.
I now remove the side trim by removing the door seal and lifting the trim vertically up. There's 3 pins on the bottom holding it in place. I can now easily fit the cable for the soft close under the step.
So I've gone for the VW solution for laying a cable, which is to tape it down. They normally use this foam stuff, which is the same stuff they sell for insulating panels, but I haven't got any of that.
With the seats removed, you also need to remove the seat bases. We're now starting to get a lot of trims and stuff hanging around the garage getting in the way. Also remove the B-pillar trim from the car.
Okay, so I'm just feeding the roof harness back, releasing it from the carpet so that I can...
Attach the 2 wires from the Kufatec harness into the roof harness of the car. I've had to change my connection plan at this point. The Kufatec harness was a little bit too short to get to the door lock with the route that I'd taken across the top of the rear arch in the back corner of the car. I'm going to cut the black and green cable instead and splice the 2 wires onto it.
Open up. And you can...
Easy for me when I do the wiring that I do a good job. Excellent, that worked great. So
Now I can easily isolate the right cable coming down from
the lock. So according to the wiring diagram, we need to look for the connection is number 3, and it should be a black and green wire. Well, that's in position there, and then it should obviously come down that line, and then I think I've isolated it here, and I'm just going to check that with my using my multimeter. Set the multimeter to resistance and audible.
So, hopefully. Okay, so that confirms that is the same cable. So I'm going to now cut that cable. I'm going back, there we go, job done. Now, that end is the end that's going back to the main ECU of the vehicle, and that end is going up to the door lock. So that wire that should have been going to the door lock is I'm just going to connect that to bind those two together with a barrel connector, and then I'm going to open up the Kufatec wiring loom, take away the insulation, and pull out the cable that should be going to the main ECU and connect it to that, and use a barrel connector to connect it to there, and then I'll tie that into the wiring loom so that there's no movement.
So I've laid the Kufatec wiring harness in parallel to the roof harness, and then I tape the two together to fix the length and cut the Kufatec harness to match the cut that I made on the car harness.
Just strip them. Okay, not too. Don't worry about it. Okay, so.
We're going to join those two wires together with a barrel connector.
So. That gives a super quality connection.
Okay. So I've removed the fabric tape from the Kufatec loom and exposed the two remaining cables. So now we'll move on to the next one. So that was the wire going back to the ECU, and that's the cable that Kufatec wanted us to connect to the ECU on connection 29. So drop them both off. And then put another little piece of heat shrink on.
There. Like this. And then
Right, so now I can fold those, and then I'm going to put a bit of fabric tape around that whole area to tidy it up.
stop it from. Well, those are really good joints. Don't want to put any. Oh.
So now we're just left with this power supply line, and what we're going to do is we're going to bind that into the wiring loom, and then we're going to terminate it on the grey plug for now on the connection number 1 that's open. I'm just going to pop one of these connectors just to take. Okay, so unlock it first, and now. So I visually matched that connector to the ones I had in my box of connectors, and it's an MCP 2.8.
Seated nicely. So that guy goes. Yep. And then last thing to do is just lock the connector shut.
Tape the wire into the loom to protect it. Okay, looks pretty good. So I'm going to stick with the plan that I highlighted earlier in this video and just run a cable over to the left side, and so I'm going to start by making the connection into the back of the grey plug on the right side of the car. So the connection that goes into that grey connector is the JPT stiff.
I did it the wrong way, maybe. Ah, there you go. Right, so. Okay. Not quite in fully. Now it's in fully. Perfect. Right.
The white cable is fed carefully under the carpet and over to the left side where it comes up and joins the loom underneath the driver's seat. It needs to go into the back of the white connector and join the power supply for the rear closing module. I might have ridiculed earlier this stuff, but unfortunately this is insulation tape and cloth tape is not insulation tape, so
And a bit of cloth tape to make it look nice. So we continue. Just engage here. Ah, okay, so we have a tricky to test that. Let's test it in there. And that was over at the grey plug on the right side. So, all's good in cable land.
I need to reinstall both of the front seats so that I can reconnect the airbags and turn on the ignition and then test the whole system. Right, so the power is back on, the seats are in. I haven't done any coding or anything. Let's see what happens. Hopefully something. Oh yeah. So the next thing to do is just to check the adjustment of the door before you put the rear trim back on. There is a little bit of adjustment on the locking position, and you should set it so that the side door, the sliding door, is sitting just slightly out from the side panel. It's called shingling, and what that does is basically when the wind comes down the side of the van, you don't want it hitting that edge there, because that's creating more resistance for an object that's already a brick, but what it creates is turbulence and noise. So this panel should just be sitting an absolute fraz out from this panel, and then it's right. And you should check the height of the lock so that the alignment between the glass is right, and just slide it up and down and out a little bit to compensate for that. And also I found I was getting a small contact with the door and the striker plate, and so what I've done is I've taken that gasket out. I'm also going to pop a little dab of Loctite on that bolt. Might be a little dab too much, that. There you go. I'm torquing that nut up to 15 newtons per metre. I'm now going to reinstall the side trim. You need to replace the clips that are broken, and the ones which are not broken you have to reset by pulling them into that position. I would recommend buying new clips from Volkswagen. I've tried the ones on Amazon and they were rubbish. The white ones are for the door trim and the black ones are for the side panel. There are also two trim clips on the lower part of the wheel arch that need to be put back onto the trim. These, you kind of turn them like that and then they come out easily. And then they just kind of fit on there. Fitting the trim back onto the car is incredibly quick and easy because that's how it's designed to go on.
So with all the components fitted back into the car, it's now time to do a final check with VCDS. So we've got a few errors after all the work we've done. These need to be cleared. With the T6, you have to clear them individually. You can't clear them as a group. And if they don't come back immediately, then you're okay. Cycle the ignition by switching it on and off. A second full scan shows that everything's gone and the car is back to normal. So, just wanted to summarise what I spent on the project. So I spent €70 on the Kufatec cable loom with instructions, 100 on the soft close module, that was second hand, 130 on the second hand soft close motor, and €20 on a load of new clips from Volkswagen. So how long did it take to do the work? Well, Kufatec suggested that it was going to be about 8 hours for a professional to do it, and yeah, it definitely took me longer than that. Whether it was worth it, well, I think it was totally worth it. I'm really happy that now my daughter is not having a problem getting in and out of the car. I don't really think it's a great deal quieter than without the soft close function, but it does mean that the door closes first time every time, so you don't have to bang it 2 or 3 times to get it closed. I hope you got this far through the video. I really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, and if you do, you will get a notification when I've done the oil cooler on the engine of the vehicle, which is my next project.